Police forces dispatched officers as spotters from each area that EDL divisions came from on Saturday in Manchester. We spoke to one officer gathering evidence on membership. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he had taken 800 photos.
People of the Queen to come and fight for your country.
In Manchester on Saturday, they even organised speeches. This teenager from West Yorkshire was put in front of the cameras and presented as a rising star of EDL, without his face covered.
You gave the speech earlier, and obviously the leadership of EDL asked you to give that speech. Some people would look at that and say, well, where were they? Where were their faces on the cameras?
Well, I was actually going to do it without wearing a balaclava, you know.
At which point, EDL leader Tommy Robinson from the warehouse in Luton walked into frame.
We're not. No, why aren't you? You've got a balaclava on, and here's an 18-year-old you put forward, and his face is on the camera.
I live in a heavily populated Islamic extremist town, where the head of Al Mujahideen are based.
Oh, come on, though. You're a leader, and you should stand up to the plate.
Back with the Balaclava Brigade in the Luton warehouse, the press conference was over. The burning swastika extinguished.
Health and safety at all times.
And one last question to Tommy Robinson.
Somebody described EDL as a drinking club with a website.
If EDL found a way to sustain its current momentum on Britain's streets, it could become much more than that.
Well, I'm joined now from Manchester by Dr. Matthew Goodwin, who you saw in that piece and who's advised the Home Office and local councils on the far right. What is this, then? What do you think it is?
Well, the EDL essentially is a single-issue grassroots social movement. Unlike the BNP, for example, the EDL only campaigns on one issue, which is that being opposition to violent militant Islam.
Their website, I was looking at it earlier, is very preoccupied with demonstrations. That is essentially what they're about right now.
Right now, that's what EDL is all about, is maintaining this street-based presence in Luton, Birmingham, Manchester, and the organisation is expanding to move into Wales and Scotland. But I think there is a tension within the organisation between those who want to stay at the grassroots and those who want to go toward elections.
There are accusations by their opponents that what they're trying to do with these demonstrations is to provoke a violent reaction. Is that true?
Well, I think what this marks, in essence, is a return to the 1970s strategy of kicking its way into the headlines, what we saw with the National Front in the 1970s, and really what the BNP has gone out of its way to avoid. I mean, there's no question, looking at the EDL demonstrations in Luton and Birmingham, that confrontation follows in its path.
They're obviously tapping into something, though, in public opinion, aren't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, if we look at the survey data just on British attitudes toward immigration, large majorities of the electorate simply want less immigration into Britain. If we look at their attitudes toward Muslims, we can see in a poll in June this year that around 2/5 actually think that Islam, even in its mildest form, is a danger to Western civilization. So there's no question that, that there is a pool of potential around the EDL.
What do you think when, I mean, you advise all sorts of councils, organisations, the Home Office and the like. What do you tell them is the best way for mainstream political parties to react to a movement like this?
Well, what's interesting about the EDL is that it is quite different from traditional far-right organisations. For example, the BNP has a whites-only membership, whereas the EDL actually packages itself as a multi-ethnic, multi-faith-based organisation, even though in reality, of course, it might be quite different. So there are some nuances here with the EDL that call for political parties and the media just to think a little differently about how they respond to the organisation, particularly on the streets where it's most active.
Go on.
Well, just in terms, for example, about the police and how they respond to the organisation, but also how the left-wing organisations respond to the EDL. In Manchester, for example, we saw a large presence from left-wing
anti-fascist. What's the sensible way to deal with it? I mean, ignore them, engage with them, listen to them, what?
Well, at the moment, the EDL is a small organisation. At best, it has probably between 300 and 500 active supporters that it can regularly mobilise. So it's not on the scale of organisations that we've seen in Europe. But what was shown in Manchester on Saturday is that all of this really comes down to effective policing.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks.